Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another Kame House Lobby with the 2MK team. The latest news on the grapevine is that we have heard that there will be a patch next week toward the latter part of the week. We are not exactly sure when as yet, but what we do expect and has been hinted at is that we will get the patch notes actually a day earlier. Or, depending on when it actually is, it might not be a day earlier. The point is, patch notes are next week, probably next week Tuesday. We might have stuff to talk about on the stream for Thursday either way. Of course, we may also end up not having Kame House depending on how the patch is installed, which would be sad, but so be it. There's been a lot of shifts in mental states that come about as a result of the DOA Lounge and DOA 6 release. We're expecting to see some craziness this week. There has in fact been a somewhat preview stream, and there is a Twitter thread, let's call it thread, with some explanations of what was going on there. Some of it we will be pushing into this stream. So you can listen out for a little bit of that. Mostly we're going to be looking at what we were mentioning before, specific things that team members do and how to think about those things, your own level going up. It's very important to understand the strengths of your training partners, even if you choose not to constantly press on or abuse their weaknesses. Learning to counter their strengths and turn those into either weaknesses or opportunities for yourself can be really important, so you generally should not sleep on that, basically. There are also, of course, little tactics we've been picking up for other reasons. And little tactics make a big difference in team games. They're very heavily tactical games most of the time. One you're seeing already is the use of cell assist in a team to help deal with scrambles, rather than to apply pressure. It's really effective at this job. So much so, in fact, that until the opponents in question get used to the fact that this is going to happen, he's likely to stop a lot of problems. And there's really just no risk to doing it. Once again, assists were always something you use to either extend your pressure or to set up your defense. But with the defense option taken away, in certain cases, you basically can't mash assists out of block stun. Being able to use your assists in scrambles in much the same way is more important. Not necessarily because it was a bad idea before, but simply that you generally want to see if your opponent made an actual mistake first. Meaning that if you knew that after the scramble you could get a punish if your opponent tried to come in on you, or that your assist would be able to hit them if they tried a certain thing while you were in block stun, that option has gone away, forcing you to use the assist more in the semi-neutral or just about to re-enter neutral situation from the scramble. That was almost certainly an execution error.
中途半端な力を身につけた者はかえって早死にするよ。あなたも多少腕を上げたようですね。盾になる以外でも役に立つじゃありませんか。
It's time to face your opponent!
Having a giant repertoire of tactics is precisely the way that you end up improving at this game. Execution will definitely take you quite far, but tactics are generally the way that you get your opponent to stand still long enough to actually get hit by anything. Once you've gotten past the idea of an opponent who will make a mistake and therefore have a problem, you have to deal with that all the time. The faster your opponent becomes over time, the less their mistakes actually matter to anything. For example, in this case, the main thing I'm trying to exploit, even though not successfully today, is the fact that Omurabbit tends to be very mashy when placed in a position where he cannot actually hit the opponent. For example, I probably could have blocked that one, but the longer you can stay away and evade, the more likely it is that he'll get more and more likely to hit buttons, rather than walking you down or similar. But this is actually good with the team in question, and the main reason that that worked out was because of getting rid of Trunks early enough to remove the potential of Trunks' assist to act as a way to fill that space without actually endangering main character. So on the tactical level, there's nothing specifically wrong with being that active, potentially being mashy, when Trunks is around to support. Once Trunks is gone, one's tactic has to change, or you have to go all in and commit to it with the opponent thinking one way or the other in response. Either, oh, they're not going to do this because they'll know that I'm waiting for all the mashing, or
It's time to face your opponent.
the opponent comes to the opposite conclusion, oh, you're mashy, so this will happen or that will happen, and eventually you'll stop. But you don't have to stop, you could just do it anyway.
Ready? Go!
Similarly, we know that the wolf's ability to set up really good super dashes is something you really have to learn a way around. And with characters who basically just get to super dash for somewhat free a lot of the time, being either ready to counter it with your 2H, some aerial move, or some other specific method of stopping it gets high on your list of priorities when facing him. Yet it's not enough of the fighting style, it's not I'm just going to mash this. There are specific setups behind it. You can of course just take advantage of the times where you do manage to hit the 2H, but that is relying on purely responses for something that has a tactical solution. Japan's strength comes up in defensive, and adding the defensive scramble reaction, i.e. I'm calling Vegeta or I'm calling Cell because something scrambly has happened and I don't know if you're coming at me or not, adds a lot to that situation as well. In fact, most of the time, she becomes more likely to get hurt if in that scramble the opponent defends and she tries to use the assist in order to get in, as they're not generally advantageous enough at that timing or spacing to lead to anything real. However, her strong defense stands up well to all the super dashes, even if she does not in fact manage to stop them. Nappa also has the strength that when you leave him alone for long enough, particularly if you don't have any tricks of your own, it allows him to simply put down Cybermen while using one assist, because if all characters are still active, it will still leave him with another assist to use after if the scramble situation does come up. In this case, it's usually better to use Cell because, once again, the opponent is often using their super dash, and it is possible to get through Vegeta's. In the end though, there's not much reason to shift away from a plan that makes you better when playing against training partners or friends. After all, you'll have plenty of time against other opponents who are less understanding or less predictable to practice your tight strings and complex situations. In this case, therefore, I'm going to continue to focus on being hard to hit.
さないぞ。こっちだ。はあ、行くよ。そら。や、17号だ。なんの。来たんだよ。なんの。終わりだ。アンカーボンズ。
どうだい？ちょっと脅してやるか。ちょっと脅してやるか。
しまった。
どうだ？生意気だよお前。ちょっと脅してやる。いますよ。大丈夫か？なんだとそこか。終わらせてやる。覚悟はいいか。
あいつ本当に強いよ。やあ、そら黙っときな。どうした？やあ、はあ、そら、手を抜いているのかい？こっか。よっよっ。カツオだ。逃がさないぞ。感謝なんかしてないからな。見えた。
終わりだ。覚悟はいい。
カツオだ。逃がさないぞ。
The other reason for this is that Omniraptor has a very strong defense, meaning that it's a very relatively binary situation. Either you land some hits, or no hits. Is that invincibility again? Generally, expecting and relying on your opponent to be mashing in that way is not enough to get you through most matches. Especially when they play characters who don't really benefit or suffer particularly from you expecting it or failing it. However, you do get a benefit from eventually reaching the point where your opponent knows that you're trying to bait it, and then just ignoring that. The sort of player against whom you can't make any execution mistakes. This is a strength in general of players who do tend to hit a lot of buttons. They will get a lot more conversions off of your execution errors than players who tend to defend a lot.
The battle's about to start. Good luck! Are you ready? Go!
Once again, you see there the actual downside and fail that comes with going in after calling Vegeta. This can work for Cell specifically though, as it often means, depending on the timing he was at, that he can also call Nappa to keep pressure going if he really wants to keep the opponent in the corner, for example. This defensive style often means that both assists are available at critical moments, and when your assists tend to be available in your rhythm, it's one of the most important possible things to learn at the beginning when you're learning this move. When you face higher level opponents who force you into constant situations where you need to use and understand your assists more often, yes, it gets a little worse. But if you have strong defenses in the first place, especially if playing against players around your own level, your best bet is to try to figure out how to make sure to have both available and what to have them available for. Cell's defense, for example, is so strong that if he simply does defend until his assists are back up, he doesn't even have to worry about how to get in most of the time. His opponent will often come to him, and if they don't, he has a lot of good options for this. Especially with a team that has such high synergy on assists in this way, your opponent eventually does need to come in at you. This is particularly true in the situation where their assists are not back up yet for some reason, and they would need them in order to open you up. This is in fact one of the most powerful possible things timing-wise to understand about this type of team. If your opponent's assists are not up and will not be up before yours, you can simply watch their assist meter, because it tells you how long it likely is before they will come in with any quote-unquote real offense. Often, it also tells you exactly how long it will take for them to attack. Once their assists are back up, the attack will usually come at that time. And if you have a good interception, or just can generally think of a strong way to defend yourself in that situation, you may be in a really good position. No one wants to spend too much time waiting for whatever else to happen. Once your opponent is down to only one character, of course, you can still more or less defend because the exact same situation still stands. They've got now no actual way to break your defenses, and you can just have your own assist recharge every now and again. This matters more if you know exactly how to counter certain moves your opponent does. But most of the time, you can use it as just a way to learn how to do this, even if you don't specifically understand every aspect of it.
Get ready for a Dragon Ball Rumble! Ready? Let's go!
Understanding the tendencies and strengths of each of the players in question can really help you understand what to be frustrated about and what to take seriously. Similarly, even without thinking about it, we have definitely seen a lot of improvements in terms of ability to convert and types of awareness come out of our even very limited time with our bots. Even if the only thing is added is confidence or comfort in particular situations, either in blocking, as you're seeing here, or counter timings, the situation vastly improves when you are feeling a little less stressed out. It is actually also fairly difficult to open players up as a whole in this game without a very specific subset of characters. A lot of it is definitely just more or less muscle memory that needs to be picked up in one way or another. And that muscle memory is not that hard to pick up through practice, even when we don't really have time to line up training other than this with each other. Simplicity, and I do mean simplicity, after working with Eunice bots I feel qualified to call DBFZ bots simplicity. The simplicity of the DBFZ bot really allows you to pick up and play and quickly get some practice in, even if the only thing you had time to do that day was poke at, like, banning your super dashes or something. Whatever it is to make your damage a little better will help. This matchup is heavy in favor of Krillin, but not for the reason you'd expect. It's not that Piccolo has a lot of problems fighting Krillin. It's that Piccolo has a lot of problems hitting Krillin. Krillin can more or less flip about and stay away from Piccolo for a really long time if he wants to, and he has counters for just about everything Piccolo can do from mid or full screen. Piccolo has quite a few good punish style normals, but they don't really help that much, and he's relatively bad at opening Krillin up, at least without some assists or some luck with certain things. And as you can see there, he's not the best at converting when he does, as he doesn't tend to do damage in that way. Therefore, he spends a lot of time attempting to make Krillin misread the situation enough to take a hit. Or, in my case, just going ham and not really caring about it because there's too little ways in on Krillin as it is. You might as well just try to hit some stuff and hope you get lucky.
これでも少しは腕を上げたんだからさ。
Brace yourself for the coming battle!
A similar issue happens here. The dynamic between myself and Just Fine is always toward Just Fine managing to block through a ton of things and make me punish, and me being as distracting as possible, to the point of trying to mask intentions by having no intentions, or by moving in ways that don't really give away too much, because the aim is not necessarily to hit, but rather to just move. Getting too invested in any given thing is usually bad. It's generally much easier basically to hit Just Fine's characters when they are thinking about how to hit mine. This is why getting cornered is actually one of the worst possible situations, as there's nowhere to go or do those sorts of things with. Meaning it's best to switch to Frieza even if he's still going to be at risk, because he's the best at getting out of corners. Similarly, Piccolo is good at dealing with that part of the match and part of the problem. Perfect spacing, dealing with the scramble situation, and so on. Also the strongest with punish character on the team. And then we have Rita's running medium, which is probably the best thing ever.
あなたも多少腕を上げたようですね。盾になる以外でも役に立つじゃありませんか。
Get ready for battle!
In this case, mashing does not work anywhere near as well, as not only do these characters tend to armor through and evade the attacks, Android 21 also has a lot of benefit compared to most characters for punishing things, and she doesn't have to wait for the opponent to land. She gets at least a meaningful benefit off of just going for the air connoisseur cut whenever she thinks that she has a chance for it, making the punish game not necessarily more damaging, but certainly more empowering. This pushes on the to do a lot more with assists in the same time frame. And in the end, it still won't prevent the same sort of problems, meaning that he often has to maximize damage and therefore give up a lot of meter that would therefore be used to open the opponent up. This means that if the wolf takes a chance like that to switch out Brawly and let him recover a bit, there's not a whole lot that can usually be done about it. This is a team that tends to take hits so consistently from pressure that they won't end up in a scramble where they could then use that scramble to switch character to one with less damage. However, in this team, Cell suffers a little bit more in that he no longer has an assist meant to cover his own scramble situations. Therefore meaning, as you can see, it's time for Brawly to come back in and try to put in the work, with Cell in the background to back up instead. Once again, mostly about rhythm of assist and understanding in spaces. But there's the uppercut. "21 would have been held for a bit longer, if possible, to make it a little bit easier to control which move she ends up getting for her power-ups, first of all. And not having to worry about stuff like this. But dropped at literally the worst possible time and picked up again. So this one was mostly a matter of rhythm and judgment as to when to pull 21 in, with a bit of overcommitting in a particular area, but the overall shifts seen in the match still work out on both sides. On the action. Probably on the action. But of course, he never counts Cell out. He's always able to make these comebacks. He's the character built for fighting from that position, making him a good pseudo anchor for many teams.
これで全てが終わりましたよ。ありがとう悟空さんたち。頼ってばかりはいられない。これからも俺のこの手で勝つんだ。
Tactically speaking, this match is relatively difficult because the character that is the strongest against this entire team is one character. It's usually bad when the advantageous character against your entire opponent's team is one of your characters because it means that once they're lost, the situation usually gets much worse. Your options are, of course, either to try to get them in early so you can at least try to bring them down, or try to save them so it doesn't come up too much. But for example, Fat Boots deals with a lot of stuff 18 wants to do as a generality. And a ton of stuff Piccolo wants to do, as well as not really standing in the space Piccolo could easily attack. So, having basically completely failed that approach to the situation, let's bring in the person who can actually deal with these setups. At this point, one doesn't have to worry too much as the situation is lower and lower damage, but every time you defend incorrectly, you get closer and closer to running out of time with the character that is capable of doing something. Fortunately, there is one benefit in this part. The character required to do the job here with meter is not Frieza himself. And this. But I can also take advantage of the fact that the opponent is not specifically trying to hit me. It's mostly another, I'm defending and you're falling into my defense. Like that. So if I were to try to win this match directly, it would be almost entirely just not attacking. As there's no benefit to doing so. That said, it's always my aim to try to make sure that I can attack literally anyone, regardless of what they're doing. So, again, since it is that type of lounge, one must work on that sort of thing rather than focusing on winning it.
Brace yourself for the coming battle! Are you ready? Fight it out!
これでも食らえと消えろやってみせるやってみせるここまではやるなそこか頼みます
大丈夫ですか？大丈夫ですか？
世話が焼けるな。
どうした？
地球ごと消えてんだけ
この程度か。
せいぜい楽しませてくれよこのベリーズの落ち着をさせるなよ
Between the two defensive players, the same thing happens. But it is, as described before, a matter of waiting for each one's quick draw moment or for their assist to recharge to decide what to do next situation. In fact, even that worked primarily because Vegeta still had the Nappa assist available, which increases his chance of landing Dragon Rushes. The opponent cannot be absolutely sure. I'm sure they can tech them, but if your main goal was to push back, and you didn't specifically care whether or not the Dragon Rush landed, it's super effective. Similarly, mashiness, which doesn't actually help here too much, as Nappa can still be switched out. And it's relatively hard for Onryaku to basically get back in and force the Dragon Rush or whatever to prevent Nappa from being able to heal up. After that Dragon Rush tech is one of the safest times to do your own switch in, if you don't have enough meter otherwise. Not because you won't get hit for it, you absolutely can, but it's more so your opponents are likely to be expecting it in the exact same timing as you think. At least at first. But since it doesn't come up often enough in the game to be a real big deal, it's really likely that you'll get away with it at least some of the time. Breaking through with the sparking. With Kame having that much meter, it's not really as possible to do certain things. You have to worry about the mashing a lot more now, and so on. Vegeta's life becomes relatively hard at this point, but interestingly, he can be more effective by using more of his own Ki blasts because it's more likely to cause Krillin to become active and not watch his spacing as much. There we go. Trunks is also just as effectively vulnerable to his father's air shenanigans. It's easy to anti-air Vegeta if you really believe he's coming at you, but because he has that ability to float there and make sure that you don't have to deal with this directly, and you don't just want to super dash into the air at Vegeta, because he's one of the few characters who can just do an invincible move in the air and beat your super dash without even blinking, even from the low angle. He's able to spend a lot of time in the air frustrating characters with that move, unless they have a good move that goes under him and then strikes, which basically Trunks has but might miss, and Krillin basically doesn't have at all.
The battle's about to start. Good luck! It's all or nothing. Fight it out.
This team is not really one against team. Just super dashing in is likely to help too much, which is probably why Broly went down as quickly as he did. However, if you are relentless enough about it, you do only have to worry once your opponent actually goes for the DH. Ooh, a Cornelian combo. This is another team that technically has low damage without a certain setup type, meaning that you will get hurt by them, but if you're careful enough in specific situations, it might take a little while to truly get finished off. This often means, however, that you can't afford to spend your own meter trying to open them up. And we can see the advantage being taken of that right here. If playing defensively enough, and forcing things like Raw Vanish, your meter usage becomes a very, very unrewarding setup, and therefore you just lose eventually just by being outlasted. However, with that move, 21 drastically increases her aerial options and resolves a lot of the situations that you normally have to deal with. In short, getting that off of Vegeta early enough was a really strong boon to the way that she worked out in that match, and probably could have been used a little bit differently, if not better, earlier on. But we're back to discussing teams that don't use assists.
The outcome of this fight is anybody's guess.
The entire strength and intensity of this particular team is understanding when to, rather than assist, land a move and get a lot of advantage in situation based on pulling in the next character who has the strength in that screen position or situation.
Are you ready?
When the opponent is close to the corner like this, she has such a high advantage compared to most characters that it makes more sense to just call her in. But in mid-screen, this is no longer the case. So Piccolo is brought back in to try to fight the mid-screen again. Piccolo should have been brought in at that moment, for example, as he would have had a higher chance of making sure the opponent was not able to do anything. Does work. Once again, should have been paying attention because that should have been Piccolo.
終わりだ。そこか。どうした。受けてみろゴーン。激烈砲弾。覚悟はいいか。そこだ。行くぞ。まずい。強くなったな、ご飯。
Using the misdirection works better on, as mentioned, players who either have a strong defensive mindset or a strong offensive mindset, or the binary state displayed here where they are tending to be only one or the other. As long as you can read it, misdirection continues to work.
It's time to face your opponent! Get ready!
This is another character where aerial ability of Cell and Vegeta will really help minimize the damage taken. Majin Buu is not really a character who gets to do a lot of damage to aerial opponents. He has options, but they're not that great, and they tend to require him to reposition himself in ways that would lead to him having at least a chance of getting hit by the jump heavy. Piccolo is a bit more effective in this round, but he's still not a stellar character for dealing with jumping opponents. If you are far enough away, he's not very effective. And against Vegeta, it's relatively easy for Vegeta to take control of the situation rather than Piccolo. In fact, you already seen the use of Meteor almost entirely as an annoying way to just raw vanish and stay out of trouble, thereby stretching out the entire experience quite a lot. Understanding when the opponent has switched to the mental state of "I'm coming in now" is the last step in fighting against this sort of thing. Once you've understood your opponent's wish to come in at you, you can generally counter it and start to abuse their timings. Here's a scramble, and visual the solution to the scramble situation. Generally, when one gets opened up in this way, it's mostly going to have to be something you remember how to avoid in the future, but not really that dangerous now. Maintaining position using the vanish just leads to a slowdown of the match, but with a slowdown that Cell controls fairly well. You can already see, for example, even in this very tough situation, there is a struggle to maintain enough meter to actually do any serious or lethal damage. And that sparking is not going to last too long, leading to even more issues with it. Now, while this friend is clearly not in a situation where she's likely to win this based on having done more damage or even outlasted more, you can see that the strategy as a whole on both sides is working more or less as you'd expect it to, with more of an outperform sort of situation having to be looked at. Cell can simply now therefore activate sparking and live through a ton of stuff, while also potentially doing more damage. Fortunately, just enough meter to actually get the finish.
共闘というのは俺の主義に反するがな。まあいい。貴様に免じて見逃してやる。
Showdown is about to begin!
This team has no optimal ways to stop Super Dash. Even if 18 does use her barrier, she must combine it with Frieza's assist to stop the opponent. Jump back medium is a decent answer for 18, but again, not really much that Piccolo can specifically do. Frieza has some options, but still not that great, so in the end, it's really going to come down to her ability to deal with the situation. What she does have that most characters do not, and what Frieza can in certain situations substitute for, is a very long medium that allows her to do certain specific things. But in the end, getting rid of Broly is the best option outright, as the other two cannot keep up the same sort of thing against his team. But no, again, the opponent continues to move almost unstoppably, just more or less relentless because that's the easiest way to deal with the situation. And you can take advantage of this in a lot of ways. Case in point. Ah, dropped it.
そろ死にたいだろ。
すぐに終わらせてやる。
もうここまでだ。
Understanding the relentlessness of an opponent's mindset and how much resources you can afford to use to at least try to tag or catch them occasionally helps you understand rhythm as a whole.
あなたも多少腕を上げたようですね。盾になる以外でも役に立つじゃありませんか。
Time to begin the match!
This is actually generally a harder match for Jasmine because, aside from not being quite as good at reading that situation, she doesn't generally play characters that get out of the way that easily. They tend to have to commit or defend. Similarly, there's an obvious weakness on the Omni-Rabbit side, specifically that of being able to be Dragon Rushed fairly often. In general, therefore, the two players are mostly trying to interact on that level. How can I make you defensive enough to get Dragon Rushed? Versus how long can I stick to you correctly? Cyberman to the rescue. The other in-between reactions have very little to do with anything other than character matchups and the understanding of the players in terms of what they can and cannot react to in time. Being able to understand what you can and cannot help your teammates with as a result of understanding that type of issue with their quote-unquote weaknesses is also really important for your own flow and growing as a player in general. It does sometimes matter for if you can get past just wanting to win at all costs to understand one or two other things. This situation, for example, is purely neutral and there's really little chance of the Dragon Rush happening here or after this knockdown. It comes at the moment where the opponent thinks their attack is done and is now expecting yours. But for whatever reason, the Dragon Rush is not the thing they're expecting in terms of your offense. This is a natural part of all fighting games. We don't want to continue pushing forward in unsafe ways and leaving ourselves open, but this generally means that there's a chance that you'll get grabbed. Most games, you can space yourself so the grab is functionally impossible, But this is not one of those games. It was actually a fairly strong part of the design schema to have it this way, that basically at the end of your offense, there's always the chance that you will have to deal with your opponent going for the Dragon Rush. And even if you can always tech it, the specifics of it mean that you don't want to mash buttons and you have to be really on point with the timing in order to do it for most characters. Being even slightly off in the timing will mean that your opponent ends up with the situation to Dragon Rush you because you didn't think they were going to go for more. This is also what makes characters like Nappa and similar who have options other than going for the Dragon Rush, but that are also not attacks or that instantly deal with attacks, but stronger in those situations.
Trunks! Win!
もっと強くならなければまだ見ぬ敵を倒すために
Understanding these things also allows you to grow a lot more in simple matches with friends, as the things you're focused on stick with you a little better.
The outcome of this fight is anybody's guess!
This team is a good combination of being sticky and zoning. Their main downfall is likely to be defending from the air, meaning that from my side the better option is to super dash a lot, or try to get cross-ups going. And drop it.
私を本気にさせたね。行くよ17号。分かった分かった。いや黙っときな。どこ見てんのさ。手を抜いているのか。
ちょっとゲームをしようじゃねえか。
消えな目障りだ。
こう見えても僕は優しいんです。ちょっとやってくれ。そろそろ死にたいだろ。ラブちゃんほらに電気を当ててくれ。どうだその程度ですか。これちょっと脅してやりますよ。よ虫ら登場だぜ。なるほど出番ですよ。
楽しかったな。
終わりだ。オラに任せろ。おっと行くぞ。仕方がありませんね。なんだ状態だ。まだまだ。
Is that meter bill any help?
ここですよ。ちょっと脅してやるから。甘いですよ。どうだい。オラに任せろ。
Oh, he turned around. And you go through.
そろそろ死にたいだろ。出番ですよ。
くだら楽になっただろ。余計なことをごちゃごちゃ抜かしやがって。
Get ready for a Dragon Ball Rumble!
It's
all or nothing! Go!
やってみせる。
冗談じゃない。そこ。おいで。行くぞ。よっ。許さないわ。なんの。いっぱい飛ばすぞ。どうだ。本気で行くぞ。行くぞ。登場ね。そこね。貫いて。負けないわよ。貫いて。
まずいな。
そこね。
どうした。
どう そこね。いや冗談じゃない。お願いします。回せるかしら。お願いします。どうだ。
Against this king, there is some benefit in her managing to grab the main attack, but it's a little less useful to get it against Krillin. But as mentioned before, Cell can deal with this fairly well, as it's relatively easy for him to just hang in the air and be outside of Krillin's better attack ranges. As you can see there, his warp attack is also super strong in nearly all forms of this matchup. As Krillin, while he's not really a zoner, doesn't have a good way to attack Cell on the ground, and attempting to pop him out of the air will lead to the warp attack. Even if the warp attack does not hit, Cell still gets to more or less control his own position on screen with very little threat to himself. This would be different if Unrabbit was using different assists who were more likely to attack around or collide in some way, but Crushery style assist basically means that Cell gets to skip around the screen for free.
スーパーサイヤ人の壁、その先を俺はさらに超えてしまった。世界もみんなの笑顔も俺が守ってみせる。
The outcome of this fight is anybody's guess!
So let's continue this dance of trying to be invisible and not actually attacking all that hard. The opponent can take the advantage and just never flinch, which leads to a very slow game. Or commit really hard and take the risks.
さてとこの程度か。
かったるね。さあ食らっときな。
さあ受けてみろ。どうしたカメハメハ。
17号いい加減にしろ。食らっときな。黙っときな。食らっときな。
ちょっと言ってやろう。
驚いたよ。
絶対に許さんぞ。
無駄だ。
ちょっと脅してやる。
見えたぞ。
お任せしますよ。
動け。終わりだ。チェルド。ありがとよ。無事って。
覚悟はいいか。
バカだ。じゃあ少しだ。
交代だ。
見えたぞ。
驚いたよ。そらや。
無駄だ。
黙っときな。黙っときな。行くよ17号。分かった分かった。じゃあねバイ。
貴様ごときに。
貴様が相
まだ。
手。覚悟はいいか。行くぞ。
じゃあ少しだ。
究極のパワーを見せてやる。そう受け止める勇気があるか。オバマまでだ。たまに来るぜ。
行くよ17号。分かった分かった。はっ見えたというわけないよ。行くよ。
この程度。
そら
防げまい。
こいつはどうだい。くら
この程度か。
そろそろ死にたいか。
どうした。
そろそろ死にたいだろ。その程度ですか。ちょっと脅してやるか。
あいつ
As you can see once again, basically attack when I shouldn't have on a character who doesn't even have the capacity to do that.
終わりだ。
さあ楽しませてもらおうか。受けてみろ。
And that was just a question of, will the counter work or will the other thing work?
宇宙の塵にしてやる。
But then assuming the opponent was in the same mindset, just go for super again anyway.
あなたも多少腕を上げたようですね。盾になる以外でも役に立
The battle's about to start. Good luck!
This team is relatively disadvantaged against Omni Rabbit's team because of the same problem as before. They're either in or they're out. Which means that once they are in, they tend to have to try to stay in, leading to mashiness and strong punishes being a big problem. Fortunately, Base Goku and Yamcha are very good at with punishing as assists, and they often help characters with really long range like Nappa to actually get a full combo started. Since so many of Nappa's moves force ground the opponent, or at least behave much more so than others in terms of when they pop people up, the synergy between this trio works as long as Nappa is alive. Therefore, like you see here, using the sparking mostly to just reset that situation of you have to deal with Nappa for as long as possible. This is similar to what we saw on our last stream with Videl as supported by Super Saiyan Goku and Super Saiyan Vegeta, who basically let her keep on attacking and fighting pretty much forever. Similarly, Yamcha only needs to come in long enough to finish some combos, land some damage, and possibly pop back out, giving super back to Nappa or similar once he has 2 bars, and hoping he doesn't get caught in anything too ridiculous. Unfortunately, he's getting caught in something quite ridiculous. But this might be the moment, and there's a switch. And yet, even this is still not enough to kill Nappa, and the meter gets used because that is totally worth it. Even the sliver of life may be enough. Unfortunately, it caused Yamcha to come in instead of Base Goku, who would probably have gotten away with more of this. But still nowhere to the point of unsalvageable. Unfortunately, Base Goku is not very good at pinning down Krillin, just as you saw the same problem with Piccolo. He's also not so great at attacking from the air, meaning that if Krillin's defense is good enough, he really doesn't get a whole lot. You have to get opened up or make a mistake, usually with guarding your leg, before this becomes a big deal. And worst of all, in this moment with all this, if Krillin manages to find time to throw himself a Senzu Bean, then you're back where you started, as so much of the damage that would have gotten dealt through Goku's various clips would have been heavily weighted towards the damage, meaning that unless you have a good way to stick to Krillin, you just end up pushing through the same thing over and over. Nappa is, as you can see, a bit better at stopping Krillin or pinning him down due to his air blast, and the fact that it's relatively hard to follow it up from the opponent's side without the same sort of thing as mentioned before. He's very similar to Cell in his ability to hang in the air, do the blast when the opponent does certain things, and just get away. Understanding which opponents can and cannot easily attack you from that position can be really important to knowing how to defend yourself by staying in the air for relatively longer periods, and help you push forward with a lot of assist-based tricks that can only happen once you've managed to recharge them enough and your opponent has gotten frustrated.
Get ready for a Dragon Ball Rumble!
This team doesn't really offer 21 any specific advantages when she actually gets the cut, at least not against the team itself. Basically androids and aliens. But we did have the problem, as mentioned before, that there's no specific way to deal with Broly without taking some risks somewhere or relying on Piccolo's counters.
Are you ready? Fight it out!
Last time we went with the other option, but today we're going to try countering some stuff. The start out of the way though, it's a little easier to give 18 a little bit more space in terms of what she can do. What she should do is a different question. Missed. Characters with that long-range bullet ability also benefit a lot from just being able to push it out. You gain some meter and annoy the opponent at the other end of the screen for no reason. Higher? Nope, got it.
Android 18! Win!
今さら力の違いに気づいても遅いんだよ、バーカ。
This should be a great fight!
選手交代だ。来たね。そこだ。こんなものか。さてそこだ。点数を作る。無駄だ。そこだ。俺を信じろ。なめんじゃねえぞ。叫んじゃねえぞ。
Sometimes you just want to spend that meter to get the kill no matter what it takes. It isn't that a really good option here, as once again we have a character who's good at hanging in the air, in fact, two of them, and only one character in the opponent's team who is really consistently good at stopping them from doing that. Once Adult Gohan and his various uppercuts and strong zone positions are gone, you do still have to worry about Trunks in particular ways, as, for example, Vegeta Blue's moves are a little slow to do this, but Kid Buu has a lot of flexibility and can't easily be clipped out of the air by Trunks or Krillin without him running into some problem. Since Bardock also covers the bottom position, if the opponent does try to just do it by approaching normally, it's fairly easy to hold your space. Effectively allowing one to play footsies from the air. Bardock does of course have a harder time playing the standard footsies from the ground, but when he's absolutely alone, he does still manage to set up quite a few situations where the Dragon Rush will work, which is again, at least some chance of getting something against Unrabbit.
Trunks! Win!
敵だって成長するんだ。俺も気を抜いていられないな。
The easiest way to deal with Piccolo, 18, and Frieza, when you have a team that is functionally this sticky, is to put yourself just outside of their range, their main attack range, and spam very light attacks, do nothing, or sometimes hop and go for special things. This is mainly similar to one of our air defense style bots where you jump into the air to prevent Piccolo and King Gohan and so on from actually landing their attack on you. This is partially because none of the characters here have a really good attack for right in that space, but they also don't fear you if you're doing it from too far away. Piccolo's methods all you can do open, as you can see. 18 can do some stuff with calling certain specific spaces, but generally won't necessarily get too much out of it. And generally has slower moves to deal with the situation in the first place. But the thing you end up with most of all is the sort of whiff punishy situation that benefits you quite well. Whereas, characters like Goku actually have ways to deal with people trying to get into air to solve this. And even Frieza doesn't really have a good way of attacking right there, without using his specials, which are similar to Piccolo's, a little bit unreliable in certain areas. Slow. At long ranges, 18 does have an option, as you've just seen it, as she can curve the Destructo Disc upward. It does take some awareness to do this, but this will not generally work if she's actually too far away. And missing the end here is a big deal here. All in all, you can't generally stand too far away from them without being willing to use Raw Vanish quite a lot. Since they're good at pushing you to that range in the situation emotionally, learning your rhythm is a little easier for the player of this type of team when you are far away and attempting to avoid their good long standing buttons by being out of the range of them. Therefore, you do generally need to take some risk to be close enough to potentially get hit by them while trying to go into the air or coming down. But if you've got enough good air options of your own, you can see their moves coming to some extent and avoid them on the way.
should be a great fight. Ready? Fight it
We're now moving into the part of the stream where we normally discuss matchups, but we have moved beyond that for the time being. If you've been staying with us for the past 2 hours, you're probably either heading out or have no specific additional things to be learned or said, and if you're just joining us, you're probably going to end up facing a fairly quiet stream from here on. This is another team, however, which we have not seen the matchup for today yet. They are quite good at staying out of that same space, but they like to attack from there, which isn't so strong against Piccolo. However, they have enough attack options that is a decent idea, since with longer mediums of their own and the beam to save the situation, it's actually easier to make Piccolo have to do certain things and move himself, go into his cross-ups attacks, and so on. If that's the approach being taken, 18 is actually better at the whole thing. Since this team is good at keeping themselves out of the way when it comes to attacks, it's best to stop your attacks midway at least a little bit. For example, that switch was entirely to make Frieza take that damage instead of Piccolo. As for the reason for the dash up Dragon Rush at minimum range, this one works partially because of the closeness of having a level 1 super on Frieza. Specifically, moving up at the last moment with a certain amount of meter makes the opponent have to hesitate as to whether or not you are simply dashing to get up to your level 1 so you can instantly do it. And you don't even have to measure this yourself. Simply do the same thing and at the last moment do the input. You will get the Dragon Rush if you didn't end up with enough meter, and you'll get the super if you did. In other words, not even you know which of those two things is going to happen, and therefore makes it impossible for your opponent to actually predict it based on their feelings about the purpose of your approach. Of course, anyone can just guess and deal with the situation correctly or attack the Dragon Rush, but the point is more so toward the other side, where they must consider, do they know what your intent is? And they cannot, because you don't know either. Well, noting that we did not get around to adding as a general reference, for both the team and anyone watching, what we know about cats so far, I'm just gonna read some stuff. You should check this yourself on Kiago XYZ on Twitter. I'm going to basically just read straight from there. Again, complete credit to Kiago XYZ. Starting with Super Saiyan Goku, all of his 236 attack have different properties on hit and better rewards. He also has forward launch on his jump to H, but I'm not really sure that's a good thing. For some people, the combos I know for this character might change a little bit if his aerial to H is actually a forward hit now. However, obviously, you know how this game goes, you'll probably manage to pick up or fill out something new, and you'll just have to relearn some muscle memory. For Super Saiyan Vegeta, his 236S is faster, and Final Flash should grant a sliding knockdown even if done from really high up, which is really a big deal for Vegeta. He really had a lot of issues having a really good reason to do that when he was already high in the air. Piccolo's elbow is a little better, I might actually use it now. It's a little bit easier to pick up the opponent after hitting him with Hellzone Grenade, but I don't know, I didn't use that either. Hellzone Grenade users are seeing some love. Team Gohan has new follow-ups off of his 236 attack, i.e. X, whatever you want to call it. He can now do some with H and can combo afterwards even from mid-screen. It's also easier to combo his jump 236 out of his supers, which is not really something he cared about a whole lot, but there was the occasional person who didn't respect Gohan's incredible positional pressure, and therefore it would be nice to hurt those people more for not doing it properly. Frieza's 5L and 2L apparently have faster startup, and his 214S is even easier to use, making you plus even if you block it. I.e., you, if you are near your opponent, and both of you get hit by Frieza's discs, apparently you will be plus, which seems a little weird and kind of convoluted, but We'll see what happens when it comes out. It does seem like a decent change given the difficulty of setting up that move is a good reward to get for that sort of thing. Beginning force assists now have two different patterns, summoning Guldo farther away, Berta attacking at ground height, and so on. It's not clear how these are input or if they need to be input, or if the game will just do it by distance, but one of the things that makes that character interesting is the number of things he can do, so adding more things he can do can't possibly make it too much worse. Trump's 236X on hit has changed somewhat. It's now easier to keep up pressure even if they block. And he can follow up his 214, the Cyclone Jump, with a lot of attacks now. His Jump S after his Cyclone Jump has also been buffed, but it doesn't say what, and specifically what then. Cell will be getting a better reward for opening people up with his own elbow and similar things. They advise people to use super after it because we presume that means there's better correlation on it. His jumping 214 heavy can now be followed up on it, even better. 18 got a little stuff. 5L has faster startup and easier to follow up jump 2H on hit. This is actually a kind of large deal for her. Not because she really needed a whole buff to the 5L in a lot of situations, but as a sort of footsies character, being able to make more people respect her, even if they just end up blocking, means that there's a little bit of a better chance for her to set up the situation she likes and possibly do better along with other assists. Ease in following up her jump to H lets you do some more of the aerial forward dash into that mix-ups and similar, but I don't expect it to change a whole lot for most people. It's more of an air footsies defense sort of thing. I don't think I've seen a whole ton of combos where that drops out when you use it, but maybe they recognize she could have more combos, and that would be great for a lot of people. Gotenks has been buffed in his 236H, better reward on hit, and his 204S has a new follow-up. They advise using it to catch people trying to get away from you, which is a big deal for Gotenks, as he is often the character people are trying to get away from. Having a tool to grab people or poke at them when they do get clipped, but you don't know which way they're going to go. Let's assume that's what they mean. However, they might mean something different, in which case I don't necessarily see the purpose of the buff, but I know Gotenks' main. Hemispheric S moves have been buffed and can be followed up on hits to slide knockdowns. His movement during the ground version of his 236X has also changed. It doesn't say what. Kid Boost 236L does not leap forward afterwards anymore, making it easy to differentiate from the other version. And some 214 stuff properties have been changed. They advise using it at the end of combos to get a sliding knockdown. Sounds really important. As Kid Buu does not have a lot of sliding knockdown combos that you'd really care about in a standard situation, and very few that convert in just random stray hit situations. In fact, I'm not really sure this isn't overpowered. But we'll see. Majin Buu has had his 214X properties changed on hit. The follow-up now gives a slide knockdown. It's not really clear if it's that actual combo after it or the move. And 236H on hit now restrains the opponent. Didn't it do that already? Nappa's 5S is now a 2-hit move. Okay. That's terrifying. It also wins over other Ki Blasts in general. I see. This means that you cannot zone Nappa anymore, functionally speaking. I mean, you can with big attacks, but at that point you're just asking to have him pick certain assists or put down Cybermen or something.
A fierce showdown is about to begin.
For Android 16, his jumping 2H has now shifted to be an overhead, looking proper. And jumping 236M or H can be followed up on hit, which is probably a big deal for him, but not so much so that we'd expect a big lot of changes from it. Yamcha's 236X follow-ups can now be used even on Rift. Okay, that's also terrifying. 214X can now also be used as a follow-up to counter people in the air. So Yamcha is now Yun, if you're a Street Fighter fan. That's probably going to be a problem because one of the largest issues Yamcha had before was being punished in specific situations. And obviously while he will get punished worse if he goes for certain follow-ups and you do block, the fact is that you can't go for certain slow ways to get damage off him, making him much more effective at poking at people while he has high health, and then retreating to be a helpful assist when his health gets very low. Genshin Han's 214X properties on hit has changed. Better reward when you actually open people up with it. And his 236S now has a follow-up if you hold the S button. This is probably a good thing given the way he was played while it came to that and how much issues he had with zoning. Depends on what exactly this follow-up allows for though. For Adult Gohan, it's easier to follow up his jump 236 with super IE elbow. Okay, I guess. This was not really a high on the priority list for Gohan, but they have already specifically said that the character was mostly okay as it was, and they have specifically aimed lately to be shifting the game toward the situation of more reward for things when you know what you're doing. It's a decent set of changes to make this stage in the game's life where you're not likely to discover a lot of people, and you don't necessarily need to make a whole bunch of new sales to people who haven't played a lot themselves. This sort of game, and many fighting games in general, a lot of the sales you get later on in the game's life are from people who have touched it or have played it with friends and just want their own version. These people often have more understanding of the game and are less likely to get frustrated by it, meaning that if you changed and slowly tweak things towards people being able to do more damage, this is a relatively valid change that you can just make all the time. His 214X's reward on hit has increased apparently. Wait, isn't 214 his elbow? Please forgive me for any misunderstandings of this character because I don't remember jump to do. Either way, on the hit, then we can ignore my ignorance of Adult Gohan. The H follow-up after hit stance is now easy to follow up on hit when it cross-ups the opponent. Oh right, okay, yeah, that makes sense. 236 HS now spends all of your meter at once and deals more damage depending on the number of bars. So you thought it was a DBFZ character, but it was ideal. Noted as Goku Blue having his jump to 14X buffed, the M version is easier to combo into and the H version has an automatic follow-up now. Yeah, basically, they seem to be improving the ways in which you can convert specific situations into damage either in the defensive sense, similar to the buffs that 18 gets, or in the offensive sense, the sort of thing you see for Tianjin Han and Goku Blue. This means that going forward, we can actually expect the game to go back to being more exciting, because having pushed the design toward having to play neutral in certain situations, they have then also elected to make that neutral more rewarding, meaning we're likely to see a lot more interactions at high level, and that those interactions may involve some people doing some spiffy conversions with specific assists. One of the things that heavily limited people in their assist choices before was in fact not having certain types of follow-ups from certain moves. Combo creators can easily tell you that coming up with a really good combo has to do with understanding at what point you get a pop-up or a reset or similar to call in your assists. Sometimes you want to do that right away and sometimes you don't. So anything that allows you to get more follow-ups and therefore, hopefully, more options of assists open to you in terms of increasing your damage, means that the sort of playing neutral with assists and seeing if you can manage to get in and open up your opponent while still saving the use of your assist means you get much bigger combos and much more dominance, while still not really feeling like a complete breakdown of the game system. So we can look forward to most likely more diverse teams, even if not by much. Of course the top players will still have very strong opinions, but there might also be a lot of disagreement as to what exactly is the best sort of thing to do. As you've been seeing a lot lately, people changing teams or coming up with new ideas for teams based on the way they're being forced to play in that aspect. Shifting, in a few cases, to assists that are more helpful in either absolutely keeping up the pressure with dominant characters, but don't necessarily also serve the other purpose of defending you, or being more committed to the concept of using assists in scrambles and in neutral, not even necessarily to set up your situation, but to maintain one. It remains to be seen whether or not this is going to lead to a lot of shifts in the meta at the mid or lower levels, but it was probably still going to be important, as it means that, simply put, anyone who didn't have a team that was built around strong assist combos or specific things before will probably now get a bit more use out of their assists, especially since there'll be a larger focus in the community on talking about the sort of things we've been discussing, how to use your assists in those situations rather than just pick this one because it will pin down your opponent the best. While the fact that I don't know most of you also has a very good and strong implication. Chat is letting me know which moves I messed up, which ones I missed. And generally, the reason why it's nice to say this, but most of the moves that got buffed were moves that we don't really use because they weren't useful in as many situations. So that's probably the best possible outcome, to buff moves that really didn't have a whole lot of other uses. You are also aware of the next character, for those of you who don't know somehow. This is is the moment of the release of Kid Goku. I guess we're probably gonna end up calling him Kid Goku. GKK, GKD, who knows? We were discussing the fact that archetypally, in terms of the archetypes required for the game, they probably get a Season 3 before they have to start pulling out really obscure characters that no one specifically wants. And we do specifically get a character whose archetype was not really seen all that strongly before. What exactly he's able to do has been revealed in almost its entirety. But of course, combos and his conversions and how he works in certain specific ways when it comes to us going with assists are still unclear because that's a lot of hit properties data. Once we have most of it though, I'm strongly expecting the archetype of the character to be more of a long-range conversion from the air, but that does not actually get in directly afterwards. He doesn't have to get close in order to do this. There are actually not a lot of characters with this ability in the game right now. Most characters who have long attacks from the air also move forward when they do them in ways that make it difficult for you to get true safety. Alternately, they have decent ways to start things, but they don't lead into much. So it will give us our probably first, depending on how you look at it, character who can just poke you from decently far out, mid-screen or so, from the air, and directly get something off it without specifically having to approach you. You can expect a lot of convert from here with this much meter. Sort of like the aerial version of Jiren. Jiren is in turn very good at converting from super far away, but not so good at sticking to you, and generally does not need a certain set of parameters in order to do much damage. He just gets to do lots of damage. I guess you could say that Trunks was kind of that character before. But also having Spirit Bomb as an option means that he's able to both zone and do this. This is very different from a character that does like beams from the air or similar to keep control there. Not necessarily because the beams don't serve mostly the same purpose, but it's a lot easier to see them coming, to counter them in particular ways. Yeah, more or less Trunks and Vegeta were the closest to this before. So getting a new character of that type is probably really useful. Also, don't let Jiren corner you because terrible things happen. So therefore we are waiting on one more reveal. People are probably speculating about who they want. Capo, Disco, Kale, Kepler. That was a painful way to go. We are in fact expecting to see Kepler in general, but probably more so as another team character. 17 and 18 filling that space to some extent. And then Videl and Great Saiyaman. Even though technically Videl only came out this time, she was also approximately the first two, and even though we expect more likely to see the Cauliflower Kale matchup in Season 3, probably along with Kappa, Dispo, so on, there's always a chance.
yourself for the coming battle.
Kuro and Jiren are relatively susceptible to cross-ups. As characters, it's just a flaw they have, very mildly. This has to do with their attack vectors as a whole, and the way their 2H tends to work. Both of them are a little bit too easily outmaneuvered if you can manage to get into the air and over their head before much else happens. This is particularly strong with this team, therefore, because you don't really have to do anything in particular once you're there. They will whiff almost certainly and give you the opportunity to do something of your own. Unfortunately, this means that understanding the rhythm of the attacks you have to use against them relative to anyone else is kind of rough. Interestingly, Cell is also weak to this, but as a character he tends to position himself in spaces where it doesn't really matter. He's often getting out of the way or going into the air himself, and it doesn't really come up as a problem. But when facing off with multiple characters in a team and they all have the same weakness, it helps from your side in that you don't really have to mentally change what you're trying to do. Your opponent has to keep up the same sort of thing the entire time, meaning that you can generally stay in the same mental space regardless. The answer, therefore, jump over their heads, a lot. When your opponent starts to get really used to this, it's actually more likely to reduce their effectiveness. Because one, they'll be waiting and expecting you to go over their head, which means you get to attack from the front again. And two, they will be so distracted under most circumstances that if you're not the right moment in time to use their assists, it will get difficult. Once you've managed to get them to quote-unquote waste the assist, repositioning over their head is once again advantageous to you. This also is helpful in that none of those characters have particularly good stand heavy, which means you're likely to be able to jump over them even if they were attacking you. In short, you can treat jumping over Jiren's head as part of footsies rather than specifically an aspect of how to play to get to open him up. This allows you to shift the opponent's expectations heavily enough to stress them out without necessarily doing too much of anything. It's absolutely not about the fact that you want to jump over their head, but if you do it enough, everything else that you were trying to do and normally want to be able to do actually becomes dangerous against you. And it's where it's decently enough on Cell that you get to do it anyway. As we mentioned before, Cell is not really a character who gets a lot of really strong conversions off of his own air game without spending a lot of meter, as you're seeing here. Of the team, however, Vegeta Blue is approximately the weakest one in actually achieving this in a mix-up fashion, meaning that he still has to play it out sort of Footsy style. He's the best at going over the head, but he tends to be a little predictable about where he's going to end up when he does so. Kuro, however, relatively suffers in this particular approach. It doesn't help that he also doesn't have really great punishes for a lot of Dragon Rush situations or Super Dash situations. He's a character who likes and needs to keep a lot of control, and very aerial characters with good cross-ups tend to take some of that control away. Once again, it really isn't about, oh, you should be able to land cross-ups on this character, try it a lot. Aiming to actually land too many of them will just lead to you becoming predictable and your opponent using their counters because they do have counters. It is simply that occupying their mind with all of the counters becomes a problem. The easy solution for this from their side is dash forward. Similar to as you see in Street Fighter Kata 22, really a lot of the time you dashing a forward, or it sometimes becomes a backdash, out of the opponent's attempted cross-up, especially with characters like Jiren and Cooler who have really long buttons and good conversions off those long buttons, long mediums in particular, means that if you actually did launch an attack, most of the time you're going to get clipped, and you're going to get clipped into a lot of damage. Can be seen advantage to taking advantage of holes in your friend's play, however, especially in their defense or in their tactics, is helping to train them for the frustration of having other people do this. It may not be something they could fix easily, but managing to keep calm simply because they've been in that situation so many times of yes, I once again did not catch Dragon Rush, can help with certain aspects of emotional control when placed into dangerous situations in tournaments or similar. For example, that moment of recognizing, yes, I know I shouldn't have done that level 3, I mashed too much. One, it might not be true, but just reminding the other player that yes, I know you well enough to do this. And a player who is very fast at picking up on things might also be able to have the same effect. Once they become used to the idea of getting in trouble this way over and over, they can not only focus on the other aspects of their game that allow them to win regardless. Actually, that's the primary thing you're thinking about. Even if you cannot stop yourself from doing certain things incorrectly, managing to not crack or get freaked out by the fact that you constantly mess it up, and staying focused on your opponent's weaknesses can help you quite a lot in stressful situations such as tournament. Help to the point where even if you don't have your coach or friend around to help you during bracket, just remembering how often it's happened or what they would say to you might make it a little clearer how to move forward or try to deal with the situation. If you understand the opponent and you can see how you were supposed to beat them, then a question of how you managed to not get opened up, it's a different matter. That was weird. Hmm.
あのブロリンを俺が倒したのか。頼ってばかりはいられない。これからも俺もこの手で勝つんだ。
No, wait, why did that work? No one understands why that worked. Oh well.
It's time to face your opponent!
This team is much better at defense, much better in terms of synergy of their assists, but still somewhat lacks some of the air defense positions if you try to be directly over the opponent's head. This is an interesting thing to work on because it's not really trying to cross them up, nor is it trying to attack from the front. It's more so trying to jump straight up and come down on their head. What does help is that this can be done in positions where super dashing is a thing, and can also be done with a lot of really long jumps into specific things. You can already see that the opponent doesn't have a whole lot of options to do in that situation. This is because, as we've mentioned before, Adult Gohan doesn't convert that well off of stray hits on opponents in the air. He can convert, he definitely has jump cancels that will do it, but they tend to not do a lot of damage. Videl seemingly has similar problems, honestly. King Gohan is King Gohan and can punish and delete you for doing pretty much anything. But even he has some problems with this. Therefore, a lot of the time, your best option when close is, rather than attempt to cross up or attempt to jump in, hold up. It's basically either hold up or block. Holding up will also give you enough time to track the opponent, as you shouldn't spend as much time thinking about where you are, as this is literally the situation in which you should be most confident that you understand your character's position. You knew where they were on the ground, you pressed up, you knew where they were in the air. From there becomes the difficulty of defining what close is, and being ready to make your own options and counterattacks from the aerial position. This can take a while to get used to because most of us don't think of just jumping straight into the air as an opportunity point. But against certain opponents, it really does just work.
Time to begin the match!
初めから全力でかかってくるんだな。
また一匹虫けらが死にに来たか。
Are you ready? Go!
殺してやる。
間に合ってどうしたそこね
楽しめそう。
どうした
もう終わりか。じゃあ少し
見せてあげる
スピードには自信があるんだよ。惜しかったな。
今のうちに下がるんだ
さて俺が殺してやろう。どこへ行くぞ。引かんぞクズめ。
ちょっとやりすぎたかな。大人になって一緒に戦うなんてなんだか不思議な感じですね。
We now go into our final match of the night.
The outcome of this fight is anybody's guess.
Neutral jumps ahoy. If you want to work on that sort of thing yourself for some reason, or any of the other minor things tactically that we have mentioned, you can find our DBFZ bot input at 2-mk.org, DBFZ-bots, or just go straight to 2-mk.org and navigate your way through from there. You might find something else interesting in the Street Fighter V or Under Night sections to help you out. Speaking of Under Night, tomorrow's stream should be, in fact, another disc guidance. We are basically finished with the Batista bot for Eunice, although the stream may be a little long and somewhat complicated as she does have some variants, and while she's actually relatively easy to input, and fortunately for once tends to have a lot of inputs that you can verify without having to get them all right, as in they can be tested individually, she is interestingly one of the most timing-intensive bots, i.e. before, it really didn't matter specifically how long any given input was, or it was very likely it was going to be right no matter what you did, given how quick it is to be. But Batista is a charged character and therefore tends to have a lot of things that require a very specific length of input and a very specific rhythm to those inputs, meaning that there's going to be a lot of talk about specific frame data or specific numbers of frames that the dummy recording needs to actually have in order for the bot to be effective, or just what you can expect if you've gotten certain things right, wrong, or are not the quickest at inputting particular parts. So far, all of our tests have indicated that you will always be able to get some use out of it, and that we may also end up showing off something for Waltstrain because while he does not share all of the same inputs, he does have a couple things where you can basically convert from one bot to the other simply by changing one input. We have not yet verified whether or not this is specifically a good idea or whether or not this will count as the bot for that character, but we'll keep on working on it over the weekend and you'll get to see or get that data yourself whenever we release Batista, and we'll see whether or not Warzone comes along with her. So you can look out for that tomorrow, and on Monday we will most likely be back to our usual Mix and Mash Battle Lounge for Street Fighter 5. We did not end up having either Sandbag Casuals or the Tuesday Train this week, but we are definitely still trying to get that Tuesday Train action on, as there's some training to be done before tournaments in the spring. And quite a few more ways that we can approach building gear that have not yet been explored. Particularly stuff that is more likely to shift or become easier because of interaction with the bots from Unison. Whereas this game makes you think a lot about tactics and in-betweens of tactics, and increases the speed of your awareness, Eunice is really good at improving a number of things you can keep in mind at once, which is a good skill to have for Guilty Gear, especially with the complex matchups Guilty Gear often. So, we aren't sure, but hope for another Tuesday Train next week, and possibly Sandbag Casuals momentum, bringing us back around to another Thursday for yet another Kame House. You can find all the information about whether or not we are streaming at our Twitter _MK_FTC. And of course, this will also be where we tell you when we have released Batista bot or any other bots that we have in process. And with that final simple key blast, we have come to the end of our stream for tonight. This has been Lillian for Team 2MK. Good luck with your training, and good night everyone.
僕にだって守りたいものはある。